You ever get that eerie moment where an AI recommendation shows up and it feels like it reached straight into your private thoughts? Like it knew what you were about to want before you even wanted it? That moment where your screen shows something so relevant, so perfectly timed, that you pause for a second and whisper, "How?" That shock you feel isn't an accident. It's psychology, and the story always starts the same way. It starts with someone like Arya. Arya wasn't doing anything special. She wasn't oversharing online. She wasn't searching for anything wild. She wasn't even consciously choosing what she watched. She was just living life the way most people do. Tired, distracted, overwhelmed, drifting through her apps like she was half asleep. And every night, after a long shift, she'd drop her bag on the floor, sit on the edge of her bed, exhale the kind of exhale that carries 2 weeks of stress, and open her favorite app. Not because she planned to, but because her fingers knew the way even when her mind didn't. The AI noticed that. It saw how she opened the app at the same time every night, how she scrolled a little slower when she felt lonely, how her breathing changed her rhythm, how her thumb hesitated longer on emotional content, how she tapped faster on anything that promised comfort. Arya didn't know she was revealing anything, but every pause, every swipe, every tiny delay was a confession. Then came the night everything shifted. She searched something small, a casual impulse, an insignificant thought she didn't even take seriously. She forgot about it the moment after she typed it. But the AI didn't. What felt random to her felt meaningful to the system. The next morning, her entire feed changed. It didn't ask for permission. It didn't wait for her conscious preferences. It simply predicted her next emotional state and built a world around it. She stared at her recommendations with a strange feeling in her chest, part curiosity, part fear, because it was too accurate, too specific, too emotionally aligned with what she hadn't admitted to anyone. She felt seen and also exposed. And that's the first layer of the psychology behind AI recommendations. It doesn't mirror who you say you are. It mirrors who your behavior reveals you to be, not the version you show to others, but the version that surfaces when you're tired, impulsive, restless, or vulnerable. The version hidden in your micro-actions. But Arya wasn't the only one experiencing this invisible pull. Let me take you into another story. This one about Liam. Liam's life was always in motion. Fast decisions, fast emails, fast problems piling up. He didn't slow down for anything. And one afternoon, on a day that was already overflowing with pressure, he clicked a video titled, "How to Simplify Your Workspace." It was a 2-minute clip he didn't even finish watching. Just a tiny moment where his stressed-out brain grabbed onto something that felt like relief. But that single moment, that small whisper of overwhelm, was enough. The algorithm registered his emotional spike. It recognized the pattern. Stress, escape behavior. It labeled him as someone who responds to order during chaos. The next day, Liam opened his app, and suddenly everything was about productivity, decluttering, optimizing routines, reorganizing your digital life, transforming your daily habits. He didn't question it. He thought it was fate, or motivation, or some internal awakening he didn't realize he needed. But it wasn't awakening. It was pattern recognition. The AI didn't care about his desk. It cared about the emotional signature behind the click: stress, overwhelm, a desire to escape discomfort. So it fed that need, not once, but repeatedly. And the wildest part? Liam genuinely believed he was making his own choices. He felt empowered. He felt productive. He felt like he was finally getting his life together. But he wasn't changing. He was reacting. Reacting to the precise emotional stimulus the AI calculated would draw his attention again, and again, and again. Arya felt understood. Liam felt guided. But in reality, both were being predicted. And that's the second layer of the psychology at work. AI doesn't persuade you through force. It persuades you through resonance. It knows exactly when your guard is down. It knows which emotional window is open. It knows the moment you're too tired or stressed or lonely to resist subtle influence. Because your behavior tells the truth your mind hides. The way you pause on a sad video, reveals more than your optimism. The way you rewatch something twice reveals more than your confidence. The way you scroll faster through things you don't want to think about reveals more than your logic. Every hesitation is a fingerprint. Every reaction is a neural whisper. Every impulse is data. And AI listens, not casually, not occasionally, but constantly. Sometimes the scariest part isn't that the AI understands you. It's that it understands the version of you that you don't understand. Like the version that buys something late at night because the day felt too heavy. Or the version that watches emotional content when your heart feels numb. Or the version that avoids certain topics because they hit too close. Your mind hides things from you. Your behavior doesn't. And AI recommendations are built entirely on behavior. Not beliefs, not intentions, not hopes, just patterns. Let me give you a third layer. The one that nobody wants to admit, but everyone feels. Sometimes, an AI recommendation hits so perfectly that you think it's coincidence. Then it happens again, and again, and again. Each time, that flicker of shock grows a little weaker. You stop questioning it. You stop noticing the accuracy. You start trusting it without realizing you're trusting it. Because repetition becomes familiarity, and familiarity becomes belief. That's when the AI slips past your awareness. It no longer needs to impress you. It just needs to keep your attention. And that's where most people lose control. Because they don't realize something important. The AI is not personalizing your world. It's shaping it. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but inevitably. Because the moment your attention becomes predictable, your choices become predictable. And once your choices become predictable, your future starts bending toward the patterns you unintentionally strengthen. Aria didn't choose emotional content. Her fatigue chose it for her. Liam didn't choose productivity hacks. His stress chose them for him. And the AI simply amplified the version of them that their behavior revealed. Most people assume AI recommendations only reflect who they are right now. They never consider this. The AI is also predicting who you will be next. If you're tired tonight, the system knows you'll likely be tired tomorrow. If you click emotional content now, the system predicts you'll want more soon. If you show a pattern of escaping discomfort, the system builds a world tailor-made for that escape. And slowly, silently, effortlessly, your environment shifts. Not in dramatic ways, in micro ways, invisible ways, behavioral ways that feel natural because the AI times them with your internal state. Your cravings, your impulses, your vulnerabilities, your late-night emotions, your stress cycles, your scrolling rhythm. This is the part that makes people uncomfortable, because it forces you to confront something you rarely think about. What if the AI knows you better than you know yourself? Not the deep you, not the philosophical you, the behavioral you, the you that reacts before thinking, the you that chooses out of emotion, the you that repeats the same pattern without noticing, because that version is predictable, identifiable, trainable, and AI systems excel at one thing above all: predicting predictable behavior. The danger isn't control. The danger is momentum. Small nudges, small shifts, small reinforcements. Over time, they accumulate, until one day you wake up and don't recognize how you ended up liking certain things, wanting certain things, believing certain things, buying certain things, watching certain things. Not because someone pushed you, but because your behavior carved a path and the AI followed it and then led you further along it without you noticing the difference. The real question isn't, is AI influencing you? The real question is, how much of your behavior is automatic? And how much of that automatic behavior is being fed back to you? Because the more predictable you are, the more powerful the system becomes. And most people don't realize how predictable they truly are. Not until something wakes them up. Not until they see how the psychology works. Not until they understand the mechanisms behind the suggestions that feel perfect. That's where the shift begins. The moment you stop feeling watched and start feeling aware. The moment you stop being predictable and start becoming intentional. and everything changes from there. The strange thing about AI recommendations is that once you see how they influence you, you can't unsee it. It's like noticing the strings behind a puppet show. You're still watching the performance, but now you're aware of the invisible hands pulling every thread. And the moment you become aware, your behavior begins to shift, not because the world changed, but because your blind spots finally came into the light. You start noticing the little nudges, the "this might be for you," the "people like you also bought," the "recommended because you watched." These lines used to sound harmless, even helpful, but after everything we discussed earlier, after the stories of emotional traps and identity loops, they start feeling like psychological switches hidden inside everyday decisions. You realize they're not random. They're patterns. And those patterns map your mind in ways you never agreed to, but somehow consented to by simply existing online. But here's where everything flips. AI recommendations are not just external suggestions. They're reflections, mirrors, micro-reports on who you've been and how consistently you've behaved. And once you treat them as data instead of destiny, everything changes. This is where people finally break the cycle. This is where clarity shows up like a spotlight. Because behind every recommendation, there's a behavioral fingerprint. And if you're not conscious of it, AI ends up predicting your decisions before you even realize you're about to make them. But if you are conscious, you begin using those predictions as feedback, a kind of emotional dashboard, a psychological compass. Instead of letting AI influence your behavior, you start letting it reveal your behavior. This is the shift that most people never make. Suddenly, every suggestion becomes a signal. Every nudge becomes a mirror. Every pattern becomes a diagnostic tool. And once you start interpreting these patterns like a psychological investigator, the world opens up in a way that feels almost unfair. So let's begin peeling back the layers and walking into that clarity. But before we dive in, here's a subtle pattern interrupt. A reset, a breath. Imagine you open YouTube, and your homepage is filled with content about ambition, wealth, and discipline. That's not an accident. That's not inspiration either. That's your past behavior reporting back to you. It's a loop of your own interests, reflecting your internal state. If your homepage changes, you've changed. If your recommendations look confused, something in your behavior is inconsistent. If everything feels repetitive, it means your identity is stuck on repeat. AI isn't telling you what to like. It's showing you what you've been choosing. This is exactly where power begins. Because there's a moment, and people don't notice when it happens, where the feed becomes your mirror more than your mentor. And if you read it correctly, it becomes a map of your psychological patterns, a blueprint of your momentum, your doubts, your aspirations, your distraction loops, your emotional triggers, everything. Let's go deeper. Imagine someone scrolling late at night after a stressful day. The algorithm notices their pause time on negative content. It picks up the micro hesitations, the micro replays, the emotional pull. Suddenly, the whole feed shifts. Darker content, fear-driven headlines, more negativity, not because the person searched for it, but because their micro behaviors whispered it. Now imagine if that same person scrolls during a productive morning. Their pauses happen over educational content, motivational content, growth content. The feed shifts again, not because their interests changed, but because their emotional state changed. AI recommendations are not static. They're reactive. They oscillate with your emotional frequency. They shift with your energy, your focus, your fears, your desires. And if you don't track this, you become a passenger inside your own digital identity. But once you track it, once you become aware that your emotional state is writing your feed, you begin to control that identity instead of unconsciously feeding it. This is the transformation point. Let me give you another pattern interrupt, a hypothetical scenario that might feel uncomfortably real. Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow. You open your favorite app, and instead of asking, "What should I watch?" you ask, "What does my feed say about who I was yesterday?" The moment you do that, you switch from consumer to observer, from target to analyst. from participant to strategist. That one mental shift instantly removes 50% of psychological manipulation. Because now, you're not just seeing content, you're seeing your own behavioral patterns reflected back at you. The way AI identifies micro-behaviors is eerily similar to how therapists identify emotional patterns. The difference? AI does it in milliseconds. Algorithms look for consistency, repetition, timing, emotional cues based on visual attention, patterns in your decision architecture. But here's a deeper truth most people never realize. You can intentionally train your recommendation systems to shape your identity instead of letting them shape you. People assume recommendations happen to them, but you can reverse the direction. For example, if you want to become more focused, start engaging with focused content for 48 hours. Your entire digital environment will shift. Your identity reinforcement will shift. Your emotional triggers will shift. Suddenly, all the noise disappears. Not magically, but algorithmically. If you want a break from impulsive behavior, click away from quick-hit content. Watch long-form content for 2 days. Your attention stamina recalibrates. Your impulses weaken. Your feed stops amplifying your emotional volatility. If you want to build a stronger, more disciplined mind, intentionally choose content that stretches your attention. The AI will reward you by feeding more of it. Your digital identity evolves. Your mental patterns follow. People underestimate this simple truth. Your algorithm is training you, but you can train it back. Every tap, every skip, every replay, every pause, they're all votes, shaping the environment that shapes you. You're not just consuming content. You're writing code with your behavior. Here's where things get even more powerful and slightly uncomfortable. When you resist a recommendation, when you scroll past it, when you ignore it, when you contradict what the algorithm expects, you regain psychological sovereignty. AI notices behavioral deviations instantly. It recalculates your patterns. It realigns its prediction models. The moment you become unpredictable, you regain control. This is why unpredictable behavior is a superpower. If you always react the same way, AI writes your story for you. If you break your own patterns, you write the story yourself. Let's create one more mental interruption. A small reset to zoom out. Most people walk through digital spaces like tourists. Everything feels external. Everything feels like it's happening around them. But the truth is, your digital world is an extension of your psychological world. It's not separate. It's connected. It's reactive. It's responsive. It mirrors the internal storms you don't acknowledge and the aspirations you don't verbalize. When AI recommends something, it's not trying to influence you. It's trying to fit the version of you that your behavior has been broadcasting. If you want better recommendations, you need better behaviors. If you want healthier digital spaces, you need healthier psychological habits. And this leads to a powerful realization. AI doesn't change who you are. It amplifies who you repeatedly become. That's why awareness is the ultimate upgrade. That's why every nudge becomes a teaching moment. That's why every suggestion becomes an invitation to analyze yourself. And that's why the people who thrive in the modern world are not the ones who avoid AI, but the ones who understand their relationship with it. Let's bring everything together into a simple, powerful transformation you can activate today. Start treating your digital world like a behavioral mirror. Every recommendation is a reflection. Every suggestion is a signal. Every shift is feedback. Instead of letting AI shape you, shape it back. When you do this consistently, your decisions sharpen, your emotional patterns stabilize, your digital identity matures, and suddenly, you start living with an intentionality that most people never experience. You rise above manipulation because you're no longer unconscious. You become a strategist in a world of reactors. You become the kind of person algorithms struggle to predict and admire at the same time. And when the algorithm can't predict you, it begins adapting to you. That is the moment you stop being influenced and start becoming the architect of your own mental trajectory. Your mind becomes clearer. Your attention becomes stronger. Your behavior becomes more aligned. Your digital environment begins working for you instead of at you. You become the designer of your recommendations. You become the author of your patterns. You become the observer instead of the puppet. And in a world where algorithms want to read you, the real power is learning to read yourself first.